Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com, and in this video what I want to do is basically deploy Django. One thing I know is that while Django is really awesome far as making it really easy to spin up a web application using Python, it can be tricky to deploy if you don't know what you're doing. It's like if you're just basically newer to Python, you're newer to web applications, newer to web servers, newer to all these things. And even then, if you're not new to it, it's pretty difficult to deploy. And it's a lot simpler to deploy it on Heroku, but it's still fairly tricky because there's just a lot of things you have to consider along the way. So this video is just basically we're going to create a Django project. We're not going to actually do anything in Django for the most part. We're just going to spin up a default project and deploy it to Heroku just so that we have an understanding of the process. And we're going to kind of explain what each step is kind of doing so you know why it matters. Okay, so I'm going to head over to my screen. Boo! Now, one of the first things you always want to do when you're doing a Python project is create a virtual environment. Now, if you've ever used Node, basically what would happen with NPM, every project, all the dependencies are kind of separated out into that Node modules folder. And that's how you make sure that, you're not having every dependency for every project, just what you need for each project. The way Python does it is through virtual environments. So there's different virtual environment packages or libraries that help manage this. I'm using virtual env and virtual env wrapper. So I'm not going to go over how to install them. There can be some nuance on installing it based on your environment. So first thing you want to do before anything is make sure you have Python. And if you're on Linux like I am, something to keep in mind is that Linux comes with Python 2 by default, because it's a dependency of Ubuntu and other Debian-based Linux distributions. So if you just use the Python command, you're going to be using Python 2. So if you want to use Python 3, you have to separately install Python 3. So make sure you do that whole apt get install Python 3. Okay, and you'll probably have to install a whole bunch of other libraries along with it. So just keep that in mind. Okay, and then you'd also want to install like pip3 and whatnot. Okay, so essentially when you're working with Python 3 in Linux, you're using the pip3 command, Python 3 command, and then when you're using Python and pip, you're working in Python 2. So keep that in mind on Linux. On like Windows and Mac, I don't think you have to worry about that. You install Python, it's whatever Python version you installed. But keep that in mind, because I remember the first time I deployed Django, that was a huge issue of consternation, because I was doing everything thinking I was working in Python 3, but since I was using the Python command and didn't realize it was like this distinction on Ubuntu, it just took forever to get anything done. Cool. Now, when using, if you get virtual env wrapper just makes it a little bit more easier to work with. Makes the command, so you can use this command, make virtual environment, and then you're going to want to do -- Python. This just basically tells it where your Python the Python you want to use is, because you might have multiple installs of Python, and I want to make sure that I'm using my Python 3 binary, because if I don't, and I just say, hey, make virtual env, name of environment, okay, at least on Linux, it's defaulting to Python 2. So what I do is if I go Python 3, or actually it's, if you type in where Python 3, where is it? Where is Python 3? Let me quickly Google that command. Where Linux command. I was just using it like 2 seconds ago, and now suddenly it's where is. The where is. Okay. So where is Python 3? Cool. And then this will give me sort of like where my different Python 3s are. Okay, and I can use one of those for reference. Okay. So I'm looking really for this by user bin Python 3. Okay, cool. And so then I could be like make virtual environment Python equals, I'll use this one. Put there, and then I can put the name of my Django virtual environment. Okay, I already have one, so I'm not going to make a new one. Because what it does, basically what the virtual environment does, it creates a folder with its own instance of Python. So it's going to put the Python 3 executable in there. In this case, it would have been 3.7. It'll put that executable in that folder, in this new virtual environment folder. And then when you install stuff with pip, it's going to install it there. So that way, basically, you have this environment where it's just the stuff you're installing when you're working in that environment. This way, if you need different versions of different packages, you just, for different projects, you just have a virtual environment for each project. Okay. And I just kind of wanted to explain that because oftentimes people get really confused with what's going on with a virtual environment. So once you have virtual env wrapper and you've already created your environment, you can just type in work on and the name of the environment you created. So in that case, it's Django 2 is my virtual environment. So work on Django 2, and see there it kicks in, and you can see that it's working because it says Django 2. Cool. So now I need to spin up a new Django project. So theoretically, if you haven't installed Django yet, then you're going to be doing like pip3 install Django, and you'll install Django. Okay, and then when that's done, we'll be able to start up a new Django project. So type in Django admin, so that way we're using the admin command tools. Type in start project, so we're telling it, hey, we want to start another project. And I'm going to call this one test 2 because I've already done a test 1 just to make sure that everything works. So Django admin start project test 2, I do that. And what it's going to do, it's going to spin up a new Django project. So see, now I see this directory test 2 has been created. I'm going to go cd into that, cd test 2. And I have a Django project, it's working. So if I do, basically the way it works is that all the commands to use Python Django, you do from that root folder. So in that test 2 folder, and you basically, you're using this script in there called manage.py. You type in manage, so Python 3 manage.py, and then you type in the command. So if you want to run the dev server, it's Python 3 manage.py run server. Okay, bum 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 bum, and it's just complaining but I'm not using any database at the moment, so it doesn't really matter because we haven't done anything. But basically now it's serving it from here. So I'll follow a link so you can see what it looks like. Okay, and then this is sort of the default Django page. That's fine. Again, we're not making a page in this video. We're just going to deploy it. So neat. That's there. Okay. And again, if you're going to do more with your project, which why wouldn't you be doing more with your project? I would definitely recommend deploying early. Get this part done before you even really actually start on the project. So that way you know that you have it up working, and the issues that happen later with your deployment are going to happen because of things beyond this step. Okay? So the idea is you always want to kind of do things in steps so that way you can easily identify what step might have caused the problem instead of building out this huge application, not having kept track of certain things or done things in certain ways, and at the end deploying and having to sort of reconfigure, redo all sorts of things. So deploy right away. Basically start up a new Django project, deploy it right away, and then work backwards from there. Okay, so let me kill the server. So let's Control C to kill the server. Okay, I'm out of the server. Now let's just give you a tour of what you see in here. So basically every Django project has a manage.py folder in the root, and then really the rest of your project is in this folder that's inside of there that is, well, your project. Okay. And basically you have these files. Okay, I forget what this particularly does, but not important at the moment. Settings.py is literally where all your settings for your application is. So basically anything about how your application works is generally going to be in here or added to here. Cool. And then your urls.py, this is where you would configure like your routes for Django. So basically what you would do is you would say, hey, if someone goes to this URL, do this. Okay, and oftentimes what you do is you configure them to another file called views, and then the views will sit there and send information and do a bunch of other cool stuff. And this WSGI. WSGI is sort of like the way that it's the thing that kind of helps communicate with a web server for Python. So it says, okay, hey, we're doing Python stuff here. Web server, here's what we need to do. Okay, so this is why this is going to be really important later on. Cool. So just to give you a tour, this is just the defaults before we really added anything to a Django project. Next thing we want to do is we want to make sure we have certain files. Okay. Now what's going to happen is you need to install a bunch of stuff. Okay. The main things you really need to make sure you install is you're going to want to install pip3 install psycho pg2. This is going to be for like Postgres, so that way you can work with the Heroku Postgres. Now you might get an error that says you're going to fail installing this. The reason is you probably don't have stuff you need in order for it to compile what it's installing. And there's like 3 things you have to install. Like, let me see, I have it right over here because I had to look that up earlier. So let me just find the right thing. Put it in here. Which problem? The first one, no, that's a different problem. I had to look up a bunch of stuff. I think I closed it. Okay. Back to, I did bookmark it, so should be my bookmarks. Lots of bookmarks. I gotta go back and organize all these. I think it's here what I'm looking for. Just rather show you guys this, that way if you run into this error, you do not have to worry about this, because I've told you guys what you need to do. So where is this? Here we go. So these 3 packages. Okay, so libpqdev, python3dev, gcc. This is what all we would like sudo apt-get on Linux. So make sure you have those 3 packages installed, and you should be able to install psycho pg just fine. Okay, so you install psycho pg2. Other things you need to install is Django Heroku, which is a package that helps you deploy Django to Heroku. And you also need to install Unicorn or GUnicorn, which is going to be the web server thing. Okay, so you're going to want to install all of that with pip3. I've already done so in this environment, so I don't need to do it again. But you want to make sure you have all that installed. Then in your settings.py, we need to make sure that it knows to use that Heroku library. So let's go back over here. So basically what you're going to do, and let's go a step back. You're going to add this to the top of your settings.py. So let's see here. Settings.py. And then at the very bottom, we're going to add this line here. Okay, Django Heroku.settings, and what this kind of does, it's going to use a bunch of settings from your local Heroku to configure like your database. So if you have a database configured with that project, it'll go use that. It will basically do what it needs to do to make sure this works on Heroku. So you want those 2 things in there. And basically, when you upload to Heroku, it's going to look for 2 things. It's going to look for 2 files in your root folder. So not the sub test2 folder, but the upper test2 folder. So I need to create a new file in here. First one I want to create is proc file with an uppercase P. Has to have an uppercase P or it's going to cause a problem. And then you're going to type in here web. That just tells Heroku that you want to spin up a web server. And we're going to spin up that server by using the command GUnicorn, which is why we need a GUnicorn. And then you're going to use the name of your project. So in our case, it's test2.wsgi. Essentially, what that's telling Python is to go into this folder, test2, and look for this WSGI file. That's essentially, it's just a weird way that Django always has this like dot to kind of access its file structure. But all this is really saying go into the test2 folder, then go into the WSGI file inside that folder, and then run GUnicorn on that file, which will spin up the server that serves the project. So that's that line. The other thing we need is a requirements file. That's going to tell Heroku which Python libraries you need, because when you upload to Heroku, Heroku will create its own virtual environment for your project, and then download all the packages you need. So the easiest way to set that up is you'll type in pip3. That doesn't quite look right, so I'm gonna do a Control C. Okay, I'm gonna do pip3 freeze. So what this is gonna do is gonna take a freeze of the current state of that virtual environment, of all the packages it has installed, and then send them over to this requirements.txt in that folder. So it's gonna go pip3 freeze, put all the results in requirements.txt. I hit enter, and see now our requirement.txt file has appeared here. And if I open it up, and there I see, okay, the main things you really want to see, at least at this point, again, some of this other stuff will be used for other things. I want to make sure it does Django, because it needs to install Django. It needs Django Heroku, because that's going to help it configure Heroku. I need to make sure I see GUnicorn, because that's going to be where it webs up the server. So these are like at minimum. This other stuff is fine too, and again, PsychoPG in there if you're going to be using the Postgres database. This package resources, if you see this package resources with 000, just get rid of that. That's going to cause it to fail. At least it did for me, and worked once I removed it. So, yeah. So that is all you really need there. And then actually now I think we're good to deploy. Okay, so now we just need to spin up a Git repository. So Git init, make a commit. So first we'll do git add dot. And if you're not familiar with Git, you should first learn how to use Git first. Git commit dash m commit. So we're just committing our files. Good. So I have my all my changes and all my files all set up, and now I need to do this in Heroku. So in this case, you would download the Heroku CLI. Just Google Heroku CLI, install it on your computer, and then you'll be able to do like you'll do like a Heroku login, and then you'll log in. It'll walk you through it. I'm already logged in, so I'm not going to do that. And then you can run the command Heroku create. So if you're in you got to be in the folder. So see, I'm in the test2 folder. I'm in the project folder. I do Heroku create, and this creates a new project on Heroku, and then adds that to the remote to the Git repository that's in that folder. Okay, so now all I have to do is do a Git push Heroku master. Okay, and that's going to push up my project. Okay, and this is going to take a second. So right now it's downloading all the different dependencies that are inside the requirements.txt. And then once it's done installing all those dependencies and setting everything up, it's going to then run the GUnicorn command, and then spin up the web server. See, all that looks good. This all looks like the way it should. Okay, launching. And it's just about done. So we have to wait one more second, and we're in the clear. And Infinite Badlands. I will click on this. Open it. Okay, and there we go. See there, now we have our basic Django page deployed on Heroku. And basically now we would go back and start working on our Django project, deploy it, update it every once in a while to make sure that the changes all work. I will put a link to this particular tutorial here. So that way, the reason being is that if you decide to use the Heroku Postgres database, here are the commands you'll need to know, so that way you can make all your migrations and set that all up. But otherwise, you're good to go. There are going to be sort of other configurations you set up along the way. But the idea is that you have your basic Django project deployed, and then I would build up the project from there. Okay, this way, again, it just allows you to see what is going to cause what problems in the future, because that's just the nature of web development. You make changes, it's going to cause errors, then you fix those errors. But you always want to know that at least the basics were working first, so that way you know what went wrong. Had to be something afterwards. So my name is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com. Have a great day and enjoy.